What's up, guys? Luke here from Luke's Points and Miles. Today I have a really fun video for everyone that has told me, Luke, YouTube has plenty of videos telling us how to earn points and get these sign-up bonuses, but there isn't enough information on redeeming points. And I think you're all right. I think that's because some of these fellas talking to you about credit cards rewards don't actually use credit cards rewards. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of them that do. And some of these are serious players in the game, but today I'm starting a series called the 250K series. This series of videos, I'm going to give you an example of something I would do with 250,000 points in specific ecosystems. And today, obviously, we're going to be talking about an example of something I would do with 250,000 American Express MR points. I'm going to show you the ins and outs. These are going to be pretty random trips, and I'm going to do everything I can to include a transfer bonus. Before I get started, if you are new here, I talk about credit cards, points, miles, cashback, and travel. If that's something you could be interested in, please consider subscribing. I'm marching towards that 20,000 subscriber mark, and I'm really excited about that. If you get any value or entertainment from this particular video, slap that like button for me so I can get this in front of some eyeballs. Maybe help or inspire some folks to take the trip. With all that out of the way, let's get started. So for this first video, I sort of want to address the travelers that don't really plan a year in ahead, or the traveler that might want to do something a little different. And this trip we're going to travel so we can be home before Thanksgiving. Maybe you want to have something to talk about when your big league uncle tries to brag about how many Ford trucks he sold this year, or whatever you have going on in your family. You can compete with the big timers. So if this is the case, we're going to Paris and we're going to be home in time for our family Thanksgiving. And I'm going to show you how we can easily do that with just 250,000 American Express membership rewards points. I'm hoping everyone here knows how to accumulate Amex MR points. I wanted to use 250K because right now, some of you are finding that 250K sign-up offer for the American Express Business Platinum. So if you got that bonus, here's a great example of how you can use it. I also want to preface this with the fact that there will be some cash expenses. I'm not going to force myself to go down to the last penny for your points, and I'm going to keep it fun and show you a great example of what you can do right now with a bonus like that. And for those of you in the Amex ecosystem, most of you, I believe, can get to 250,000 MR points fairly easy. So let's see how we're going to do this. Picking Paris wasn't exactly just a random choice. I took a look at Amex's site, and I see right now we have a transfer bonus to Flying Blue, which is the programs of Air France and KLM, of 20%. That means when we transfer to Flying Blue, we're going to plus up our points. I'll explain more on that in just a minute. So let's check out Flying Blue, and from experience, I know they fly everywhere in Europe. It's actually super crazy how many destinations, but since this is a solo trip, I'm not interested in doing a bunch of connections, so I'm going to choose a direct flight, and this is going to be JFK to CDG, which is Paris. So let's pull up the Air France website. I'm not going to put in dates. When you choose not to put in dates, you can normally get a monthly calendar, and when I pull up November, I can find a flight on the 19th for 50,000 Flying Blue miles. Now, I want you to see the taxes and the fees on that flight, and notice it's not super cheap. This is the price we pay for these expensive business class flights. But it is also worth noting, you're not going to be sitting in the back with an alpaca and a chicken coop. You're sitting in the front of Air France business class, and that is one of the better options to Europe in my experience. So for now, let's not worry about the fees, but I'll add them up at the end. And I also want to note, I search one ways. I'm a deal seeker, so there's always a chance I might fly home on a different carrier. Not so with this trip though. I found a similar priced flight home for, again, 50,000 Flying Blue miles and a pretty substantial fee on the 26th. I just don't want to pretend like these trips don't cost any money, because most of the time they really do. So here we are, guys. We found a business class trip to Paris for 100,000 total miles. Here's where the cool part comes in. Remember, we have a 20% bonus to Flying Blue right now. So what I would do is I would transfer 84,000 Amex MR points to Flying Blue, and I'll get 100,800 Flying Blue miles. So I can book these 2 flights. I will reveal the cash price of these flights later on, and we'll see how we did. So here we're halfway through, guys, and we have 166,000 Amex MR points left. And I'm also going to have a couple different options, and I'll explain why that is here in a minute. My first search was pretty easy. I have status with Hilton, so I quickly searched their site. I know I can transfer my MR points to Hilton at a ratio of 1 to 2. Now, I don't normally do this, and I don't even recommend doing this, but hey, I really want to go to France and get back before Thanksgiving. So the best option I can find is this Hotel Camille Gare de Lyon, and sorry if I butcher the French name. And that's a fancy tapestry collection. I'll get hit for 65,000 Hilton Honors points a night, but since I have status with Hilton, I'm gonna get the 5th night free. So I'll only be paying for 5 of the 6 nights at a total of 325,000 Hilton Honors points, which is coming from a transfer of 162,500 MR points. Now that pretty much clears out most of our MR points, but it does leave us with like 3,500, so almost empty. Now, I do understand not everyone will get that 5th night free. I also understand that some folks are not interested in splurging on a hotel for a solo trip. So there is an alternative. More importantly, for this series and this video, there's an alternative that we probably don't normally think of. Let's look at this example from Choice Hotels. People don't normally like to stay at Choice domestically, but overseas these properties are much nicer, and if you're just using the hotel as a jump-off point for your adventures, then maybe the Comfort Hotel Paris Port d'Ivoire might be a better pick for you. We can stay here for 6 nights for under 80,000 Choice points. Choice points transfer 1-to-1 with Amex, so we can book that. We can have left over 86,000 MR points, which could help with our positioning flights, or maybe you have a way to cash them out to help with the travel expenses. Either way, I think it's a great alternative for some of us. So now let's math the math on these redemptions and see how it works out for those of you that might care about cents per point. This might be shocking for some of you, but I even looked at this flight as a round trip, and the cost of this flight is $8,054.81, which is pretty insane. Remember, we're paying 84,000 MR points plus $611 in taxes and fees. So for flights, we're looking at a ridiculous 8.8 cents per point. Remember, we had the 20% bonus, but guys, you have to admit, still pretty awesome. What about the hotel options? The Choice Hotel was an affordable $502, and you might even want to use cash instead of the 80,000 MR points, but it's still 0.6 cents per point. Not the best, but hey, I don't hate it. What about the Hilton option? We transferred 162,500 MR points to offset $1,558.21 for just under a penny a point, 0.95 cents per point. Again, not a super great way to use MR points. I guarantee this trip has epic potential and could create tons of great memories. Just for fun, let's add up both options to see our entire value of these MR points. For the Hilton option, we will total out flight and hotel at just over 9,000 minus the fees, and we spent 246,500 MR points. That gives us a value of 3.65 cents per point. I think that's a win. For Choice, it's a total of $7,945, and that was for 164,000 MR points. We come in at a value of 4.8 cents per point. Pretty crazy, right? So guys, I looked this up in about 20 minutes. Pretty easy, and it's a great example of what you can do with your MR points. I'm going to continue this series with other issuers, and I'll try to vary the locations, but just remember, for me, it's easier to book Europe, so you may see that a couple more times. Tell me what you think about this series in the comments below, and I'd love to hear about what you would do with 250,000 Amex MR points. Shameless plug, guys. If you want more information about Amex cards or any other card, check out my super cool card link in the description below. And if you have stayed all the way to the end, I appreciate you, and I want to thank every single one of you.